Good evening, and welcome to the July 28th, 2026 meeting of the Gloucester City Council. This public meeting of the City Council is recorded on Zoom with a link that is posted on the agenda. If you're calling in on a phone, you can press *9 to request to speak. If you're watching on a computer or device, there is a raised hand button that you can tap or press to request to speak. Please use either of these during oral communications and public hearings to be recognized to speak. If technical difficulties arise and the Zoom link is interrupted during an in-person hybrid meeting of the City Council and a quorum is present, the meeting may continue after efforts have been made to reestablish the link. The minute shall note the interruption. It is the finding of the City of Gloucester that no individual should be denied equal treatment or opportunity because of their age, ancestry, color, disability, including intellectual and developmental, mental disability, family status, immigration status, gender identity or expression, military status, marital status, national origin, race, religion, sex, or sexual orientation. This evening we have with us Ward 2 Councilor Dylan Benson, Ward 3 Councilor Marjorie Grace, Ward 1 Councilor Scott Memard, Councilor at Large Patty Ann Page, Councilor at Large Hannah Kimberly, Councilor at Large Jason Groh, Council Vice President, Ward 5 Councilor Sean Nolan, and I'm Tony Gross, Council President and Councilor at Large. Absent this evening is Ward 4 Councilor Frank Majota. Also with us remotely is our auditor, Kenny Costa, our Chief Administrative Officer, Kelly Dolan is with us. We also have with us this evening next to me is our City Clerk, Grace Poirier. We have our Planning Director, Greg Catamatori. We have our Assistant Fire Chief, Nick Olette. Sorry, Nick. And we also have our Economic Development Coordinator, Emily Sloan. And Chelsea Goldstein Walsh from the Board of Health is also with us. And we also have former Mayor Safathio Romea Taken with us this evening. Okay, we shall now have the flag salute. Patty Ann, you're up. You start. And Mayor Lundberg has also joined us remotely. Okay. Next order of business, Madam Clerk.
Oral communications.
Oral communications. The public shall have the opportunity at every regularly scheduled meeting to be heard under oral communications on matters not appearing on the agenda. Oral communications shall allow any resident and/or property owner and/or business owner who has a request or complaint of any nature relative to city business to appear before the council, make their statement without debate, and the city council will refer matters to the office of the mayor. Persons speaking under oral communication shall be limited to 3 minutes each. Anyone in the room? Something not on the agenda.
Just letting everyone know, Safathio Romeo Taken, 287 Magnolia Ave, Gloucester. This is not a complaint or a request. It's just thank you very much for all the help you've been assisting over the years with the Gloucester Fishermen's Wives. I don't think you'll be having a meeting, so I want to invite you yourself, and I know that Councilor Chair Tony Gross sent you the invite, but again, a personal invite for the public who's out there, everyone that's out there. on August 8th at 6:30 at the Fisherman's Wives statue. We will be doing a rededication of the Fisherman's Wives statue. We'd love everyone to come. As you know, that the city's been graciously working with all of us, your police, fire, and everyone else of you to make sure parking is available at Stage 4 Park at the Gloucester High School. We expect, because there will be a memorial prior to that from the Legion walking down all the way to the fisherman statue, that will have a numerous amount of people in parking. So I just wanted, again, thank you for all the years of helping us, all of you individually, prior, all your jobs before. We are a community. We've all been together for 25 years, so thank you very much.
Thank you. Leave it on, Dylan. Dylan, may as well leave it on. Anyone else in the room that would like to speak under oral communications? I don't see any hands raised online. Next order of business, Madam Clerk.
A presentation by the Community Development Director and the Economic Development Coordinator regarding I4C2.
Okay, is it Greg and Emily? Emily, you're up. Mayor Lundberg, did you want to say a few words?
Yeah, can you hear me, Tony?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. I just wanted to introduce Emily and the update that she's going to give on the Forever I4C2 project, envisioning what we're going to do with that wonderful asset that the city has. And Emily has been stewarding this visioning process, and we're getting to a point where we can actually solicit some advice from people on how we maintain the open space and maintain the access to the fishing industry. So I just wanted to commend the work that she and the Community Development Department have done on this, and give it over to Emily. Thank you, Emily.
All right, thank you for the introduction. Thanks for the opportunity to speak to you directly. I'm sure, as many of you are aware, since March of this year, the city's been working with Mass Development to conduct a refreshed community visioning process for I4C2. So tonight I'm going to tell you what we've done through this process and what we heard from the community, and discuss next steps. And I'll be presenting. The Community Development Director is not joining us tonight, and together with my colleague Greg Kadamatori, we'll be happy to answer questions afterwards. So as I'm sure most of you know, there's been a long history of public discussion and different ideas about this site. So this current visioning process is intended to position the city to explore the possibility of a public-private partnership to improve the site in some way. And we're looking to focus on economic development and enhancing public space. And to clarify a couple of things that are often sticky right off the bat, this is about exploring a partnership via a potential ground lease where the city would retain ownership. So there is no discussion of selling the site. And as well, the city is not entertaining any proposals that would displace the 13 commercial lobster boats that are currently docked at the adjacent marina. So I just wanted to clarify that before we get in too deep. So last year, as you know probably better than I do, the city finalized 2 different plans that touch on I4C2. So the harbor plan and the comprehensive plan. And in terms of I4C2, they collectively recommended conducting a visioning process for the site and identifying potential funding and development partners. So there has, in recent years, been a renewed commitment to doing something and exploring ways to improve the site through a potential public-private partnership, which is why we're doing this in the first place. One other update since the previous visioning work that happened long ago is that the city commissioned 2 different geotechnical studies that took place, I think, in 2024. So one was looking at the land side and the conditions there that confirmed that development is possible on the site, though not without challenges. And the other one looked at the existing waterfront infrastructure and kind of did an evaluation of the conditions there. So we have additional information that can be useful both for the city and for potential developers. for the site. So why pursue a partnership at all? Why not just leave the site as is? So there's a few considerations here. So one is that the primary use, as you know, currently is for public parking. This is obviously important for the city currently, but it is only licensed temporarily with the state. So ideally, the city needs to identify a long-term use that is compliant with DPA regulations. Current parking and commercial dockage provide very modest revenue. Meanwhile, maintenance and let alone development are going to require very significant capital that goes well beyond what we're generating from the site. The city doesn't have those resources. So this is, and moreover, and I think perhaps more excitingly, this is a really important, and sorry for the location of the presentation, but hard to see. But this is a site with a lot of potential. It's, as you know, in a prime location. There's a feeling that there could be more. The site could do more to enhance the harbor economy in downtown Gloucester. So we'd like to see what potential partnerships are out there that could help us do that. So I'm going to update you, as I said, on this refreshed visiting process and what we did. As many of you know, we received this technical assistance award from Mass Development, and we are partnered with Lori Zapalak, who's a consultant specializing in real estate and economic development and maritime cities. So she was a good fit for Gloucester. We had 4 main components of the work, and I'll provide a little bit more detail on each of them. So first, we reviewed the site's history and especially previous visioning and development efforts. Second, we wanted to clarify what was possible on the site, and this was largely in terms of the regulatory framework, so we looked at that in detail, and then we also considered other important contextual information, including the content of the technical studies I mentioned, looking at site conditions. Thirdly, and this was the bulk of the work, we gathered community input through various channels. And earlier this month, some of you may know, we offered a public session reporting back on what we had heard. And then finally, we prepared for next steps. So initially, the project was intended to produce a draft request for proposals document, but based on what we learned, we decided to do an intermediate step of an expression of interest process. So that's what we worked on. So a little bit of background on the site. It's, based on its location in the heart of the harbor, it has a long history of being at the center of the commercial fishing industry and maritime trade. In the early 1900s, this is something I did not know, it housed the Frank E. Davis Fish Company, which was a mail-order seafood business that was quite innovative for the time. And as more of us are familiar with, in the 1960s, with urban renewal, the building was demolished, and it has been vacant ever since, despite many plans that came and went over the decades. In 1978, the state of Massachusetts created the designated port area regulations, so Gloucester was part of that, and this site falls squarely within it, so it's protecting the site and much of the harbor for water-dependent industrial use. And as I'm sure you know, in 2010, the city purchased this site with assistance from a Seaport Economic Council grant. In 2011, and it is worth spending a moment on this, so after the purchase of the land, the city went through an initial visioning process and even offered micro grants to people in the community to come up with concepts for the site. And we've put most of them here. And a lot of interesting ideas were generated from this process. However, when the city subsequently launched an RFP, request for proposals process after that, they received no proposals in response. So super light and incomplete primer on the DPA. So because this site is within the DPA, very strict regulations apply about how it can be used. And the basics of that are that 75% of the site, at a minimum, needs to be dedicated to a defined water-dependent industrial use. And this slide lists the acceptable WDI use, such as commercial fishing and fish processing and the other uses on this slide. And many of the concepts from the 2011 visioning process, though interesting, were not necessarily compliant with those regulations. So with this most recent process, we wanted to gauge current public sentiment about the site because quite a bit of time has passed since that last round. But we also wanted to make sure and try to do a better job of grounding the input we received in the regulatory and financial realities of the site. So we wanted to make sure people had an understanding of what could happen there before they flooded us with ideas. Our process ran for 3 months, from March through May. So we did, I think, all the usual stuff. We created a web page with background information. We offered numerous ways to engage with the effort. So we had an online form. We had an on-site public engagement session. We had 6 thematic focus groups that brought together people from different stakeholder groups relevant to the site, such as commercial fishing and seafood, commercial and community and neighborhood interests, and several others. We made sure to speak to key stakeholders like waterfront property owners and site abutters. And we also invited anyone else from the community who had strong feelings to contact us directly, and we met with quite a few of them. And we advertised these through the usual channels, the city social media, the Gloucester Times, a project listserv that anyone could sign up for, and the webpage. So we actually, although we had different types of input, we provided the same basic questions to everyone, and we prefaced everything with background information on the regulatory context. So we asked about what were people's visions for the site, what were the values and principles that should guide any development, what were priority community benefits that the community would want to see retained or enhanced as part of a public-private partnership, and what would be a non-starter if proposed for the site. So I'll just share a few photos from the engagement that we had. Many of these are from the on-site engagement day. The top left is from one of the focus groups, more on-site engagement, and then some visiting of Gloucester Marine Railways down in the bottom left. So very incomplete, but gives you a little bit of a sense. So across all of these different types of input, a few points came across very clearly. So the first is that people really value public access and harbor views that I4C2 provides. And despite this, most people were open to the idea that the right type of building could coexist with these things. So people were not necessarily opposed to any type of building. It was more that they wanted to retain that public access and views. People also want to see this site remain an authentic working waterfront site that actively contributes to maritime industry. And as part of this, probably not a surprise that there was universal support for keeping the current lobstermen in place. Community members communicated that the parking area that this site provides is currently essential for downtown businesses, for fishing operations, and for tourism, especially the nearby whale watches. So many expressed interest in improving the appearance and function of the lot, but they also let us know that if we eliminated the majority of parking without a viable alternative, there were going to be problems. So that's something we'll have to address somehow. And then many of the comments that we received showed that many people, understandably, find the DPA rules confusing. And the idea of public-private partnerships, likewise, were a bit confusing, and some people were confusing that with, we're having a hard time differentiating that with just traditional private development. So we know that we need to have clearer and perhaps simpler communication on those topics. People had many ideas about how the site could be enhanced to better serve the community. Some of these ideas were mentioned numerous times across different respondents. So, for example, that I4C2 could support education and workforce development related to maritime trades, or that it could offer common spaces that could be used by members of the community for events. And then there were some more specific ideas that respondents raised about what could be developed on site that might qualify as water-dependent industrial uses, such as water-based transportation, infrastructure, and research facilities. And I'm not endorsing any of these ideas, I'm just sharing some of the things we heard. So what next? We took the input we got to create some parameters for potential site development. And we're trying to walk the line between making community priorities clear for prospective development teams, but also giving them the flexibility to propose something that makes sense for them, is in their interest. So the main priorities that came out were supporting the working waterfront, improving and maintaining the commercial marina, which I didn't dwell on, but as you probably know, is in need of some serious repair. Improved public access to the waterfront, climate resilient design, enhanced views, public accessible spaces and amenities such as public bathrooms, and prioritizing parking to support, particularly to support water-dependent industrial uses. And I won't go into that too much, but we did have some conversations with DEP about what could constitute parking for a water-dependent industrial use. Is possible that some of the adjacent businesses, such as whale watches, could qualify as that. So we're now exploring whether there's appetite from prospective development teams for a partnership that would complement the harbor economy, bring capital to support site improvements, and produce revenue for ongoing site maintenance, all while complying with DPA regulations. So what is an expression of interest? It's a non-binding and relatively light step in which the city would invite prospective development teams to outline their ideas. It can help the city evaluate interest in the opportunity and provide feedback to prospective teams, as well as refine proposal criteria as needed. It's a lighter commitment for all parties than a request for proposals. So interested teams could be more likely to submit something. And if we did elect to then move forward with requests for proposals, we could set ourselves up for a more successful process because having gone through this first phase. So next steps, over the next month or so, we'll be refining the expression of interest document. We have some internal reviews to do. We are hoping to open the call for expressions of interest in September, review any proposals or expressions received in November, and then based on the outcome of this, the city will make a decision about whether or not to pursue an RFP. If we did make that decision, then the city council would vote to authorize the proposed terms of the lease, which would be spelled out in the request for proposals document. So that would be your opportunity to kind of weigh in more substantially. So that is a quick overview of what we've done and where we're going, and I would welcome any questions.
Questions from councilors? Councilor Grow.
I don't think it's on. There, is it on? Yeah, great. First off, thank you for the presentation, and thank you for the optimism with which you have given it, because my pet name for I4C2 is I foresee nothing. And I guess the questions I would have for you would be, first off, does the fact that it's a lot that is not water adjacent, I mean, it's adjacent to a lot that we have that has the lobster boats, but it's not actually connected to the water in any way. Is that a hindering factor in developing the project? Is there any benefit for us to keep it in the DPA if it's not actually touching the water?
I think, so the way it has, I understand it, is that there's definitely a benefit. You're really opening up a can of worms if you start taking particularly city sites out of the DPA. And I think in the harbor plan, no one, it was pretty clear people were doubling down on the DPA. So how do you crack that? Because obviously it is a problem. But in one of the two technical studies that I mentioned, they did look at waterfront infrastructure. My understanding is that the dock system needs to be rebuilt sometime soon anyway. So there are potential ways that it could be reconfigured to allow the existing boats to remain while creating space for other users. So I think that's probably the best answer I have for you right now about that.
Does the fact that we got a Seaport grant to buy it, does that tie our hands a little bit in terms of what we can do with it long term?
And I defer to
Good evening, councilors. So the funds that we did receive for the purchase, it does have to be used for marine industrial use. It does have to be consistent. There is also, if the city were ever to lease or sell, there may be some payback as well. I think it's more in the realm of if we were to sell the property, we would have to pay back that $700,000 that we received. But otherwise,
880.
sorry.
I think it was 880.
Okay, it was probably the 8 of the 1,500, and we put 7 into it. Additionally, I'd go back to the taking language when we took the property. That was the intent. Clearly, I think in the first paragraph it says for economic development and support of the working waterfront and the downtown. So we have a lot of documents that are all pointing in the same direction of trying to follow through on this process.
If I could, one final question. How and who are going to be the arbiters of what project is ultimately selected, should there be any? I mean, it's only been empty for 66 years, so, you know, who's picking it?
We certainly aren't at that stage. You know, it's this first step of the EOI, and I'm talking about this like it's my project, but it's really my colleagues that have been working on this more. You know, once you define what your RFP looks like, you should have a clear winner. It shouldn't be a surprise, and having this EOI step can really make a clear indication of what's intended and what we're looking for. It's clearly a challenge. There's a lot of different moving parts. We have an existing marina that we're going to continue to operate, and how that would, you know, fit with some form of development on the site. But I just want to make very clear, like, this shouldn't be a surprise for anybody. I mean, I know people have moved into the community and people leave the community. But if you look at all the documents since 2009, it's been talking about, is there a way to attract investment in the site to make it something more than it is right now? You know, if you look at a balance sheet of the site, we have revenue from parking, we have revenue from a marina that don't come close to the capital needs for that site. So this would certainly have compromises associated with it, but hopefully it also brings potentially jobs and investment and enhanced public space. So that's a silver bullet project. Maybe it's out there. Hopefully it is. It hasn't been there yet, but that's the intent, to try to see if now is the time where the development community can respond to the community's needs.
Well, I certainly appreciate all the work that's gone into this, and I hope that we're at a late stage in the process where we actually get something out of it, you know. And I'm going to remain hopeful on that. So, but also I'm.
Thank you, Councilor Groh.
Thank you.
Councilor Page.
Oh, we have it. Thank you. In your amendment to your MOU, there is language that says known unknowns identified at the time of this writing include the potential impact of an ongoing MBTA ferry study. Now, we've heard rumors that that study is looking at I-4C2. I take the gist of passenger vessels being compliant within the DPA. I'd just like to note, however, we have a wonderfully set up cruise port that would probably make a better location for ferries. But our mayor, being former MBTA, maybe he can enlighten us on some of that, or at least update us where that study is and what relationship it might have to I-4C2. I listened to you mention the current dockage, reconfigure dockage, and then put in for other uses. I would also like to comment that if dockage were added, if the dockage is expanded or added to, that fishing vessels should be your first priority. We don't have enough dockage for that as it is. But there was a mass DEP response to forward-leaning concepts of, quote, marine industrial site uses that may be without regulatory precedent. Can you expand on that? Do you have this mass DEP response, and can you provide it?
I know, I think I know what you're talking about. I
This was
think-
in the amendment of the MOU. It has to
Yeah,
come
I
out.
believe that was Lori's language, and I think what they're saying there is like, blue economy stuff is evolving. So, and even when we had the conversation with them about what counts as parking for a water-dependent industrial use if it's not on site, right? If the whale watch is not on site, could we consider parking for the whale watch an accessory use that would count towards the 75%, if you're following me here. So
Following you very well.
Yeah, so there was a lot of long pauses and deep reflection when we asked that seemingly straightforward question. So it just may be that, there's not that many DPAs. There may be scenarios that arise that sort of have to be sorted out then and there aren't straightforward answers to. I think it was more about that.
But it states as a mass DEP response. There's something in writing here that I'd really like to get a hold of.
Okay, I'll have to.
Go ahead, Greg.
Yeah, no, there's nothing in writing. I think one of the other
Okay.
one of the
you.
benefits I think that we're hoping that this could result in a positive process is we did have a discussion with CZM and DEP and would like them to review any EOI that's released, review any RFP that's released to make sure that there's nothing in there that sets up a catch-22 where someone responds and we have a scenario that can't be permitted. So the intention is to kind of work hand in hand with them. They've been very responsive in that respect. So I think that's what that is referring to.
That's
Yeah.
fine.
Yeah.
It may not have been a written response. It just was the way it was worded.
Okay.
And without regulatory precedent was an interesting piece. Keep in mind that we all know we are focused on I4C2 economic development is primarily what we'd like to see out of that lot. However, every property owner is affected by the decision that's made here because every property owner, any flexibility, any relief, or anything that it stands without regulatory precedent, we all should be entitled to.
Yeah, I'll just put one more dot on that thing.
It's okay.
I think the point is, the licensing process in of itself, there are dimensional requirements, as you know, there's all that in there, but they're all unique as things get licensed. And so I think that's, in that discussion that we had with them thus far about those ideas of how do you categorize water dependency if there's some adjacency and that type of thing. So I think it's really just kind of framing that. And that's the type of thing that we certainly want feedback probably after the EOI if there are responses to make sure that those scenarios are permittable.
Thank you.
Councilor Benson.
Thank you. And thank you for all the work that you've done in putting this forward. You put in the slides here about the importance of the parking that's there. I think that, and my question is, if there was anything to go there, there has to really be consideration of where that parking's going to go, because whether it's water dependent or not, people that I represent, the business community on Main Street, is very dependent on that, including the restaurants next to it. So I'm just curious if, as we move forward, is where are we going to be able to look at alternatives so that, because that parking, it will be detrimental if we move and develop that property and then we lose that parking and there's no other alternative. It will be sorry to say, it will be catastrophic to the Main Street businesses that are so dependent on this parking.
Councilor, I understand your concern, but I don't think that's under the scope of what they're talking about this evening.
I understand, but I think it's fair to just say.
Thank you for that concern.
No, I understand.
I'll just point out,
Yeah.
the presentation
Yep.
said that was heard loud and clear.
Okay.
That parking is a premium and important, and that's part of that discussion that we're talking about.
Yes.
Is there's a lot of different user groups that use it: tourism, whale watching, people that are just going downtown to have dinner. So it's definitely an important aspect, and that's something that has to be prioritized in any future development.
Yeah. And I
scenario.
appreciate you
Yep.
stressing that priority.
I was on the Harbor Plan Committee. It was discussed on whether or not to remove this or to give this extraordinary relief to 50-50 rather than 75-25%. 50% accessory use. And it was soundly disagreed with at that level, that, that it has to be, the city can't make exceptions for itself. Or it shouldn't. Any other questions? No? Well, thank you very much. It was a very nice, very good presentation. Thank you. Next order of business, Madam Clerk.
The consent agenda.
Any council would like to pull a matter off the consent agenda? Being none, I'd like to have a motion to accept the consent agenda.
So moved.
Motion made by Councilor Memard, seconded by Councilor Benson. Any discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Ayes have it. I'd like to take something out of order now. For council vote, item number 1, CC 2026-013, Grow Benson, amend GCO Chapter 9, Trash, Recycling, and Litter by adding a new Article 5, prohibition on the sale of miniature single-use alcohol containers. Request to withdraw without prejudice. Would one of the
Council President, I'd move to accept the withdrawal of CC 2026-013 without prejudice.
Motion made by Councilor Gross, seconded by Councilor Benson. Discussion.
I would, if I could, just only say that Councilor Benson and I were responding to community input, community needs, constituent concerns about an ongoing issue that faces the entire city. I think we put together a good option and a good ordinance, and we did the research necessary to determine that it could have been successful. We obviously didn't sell it well enough. So we're asking it to be withdrawn tonight and maybe continue working on some sort of aspect of it in the future.
Thank you. Councilor Benson.
Thank you. And I want to thank Councilor Grove for all the work that we've put into this and trying to find a middle ground. I want to also commend the liquor stores, specifically the retailers here tonight, who have shown a commitment in some ways to reducing the litter and really addressing the problems that is an overall issue in this community. And I think that there are ways that hopefully we can work together in reducing litter and protecting our neighborhoods. And also, as has been noted, this discussion has led to a reduction in the nip bottles that we've seen across the community. Again, I do appreciate, and I did really come to understand the costs that could have gone into this. So I want to thank you all very much, and hopefully we can continue conversations of how we can reduce litter in this community, and hopefully we collectively as a city, all of us individually, reduce trash throughout our community. Thank you.
Yep. Anyone else? Seeing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Oh, sorry. Councilor Grace.
I just wanted to thank Councilor Benson and Councilor Grove for bringing this forward. It took a lot of courage knowing that they were going to get a lot of heat from people. Their heart was in the right place, and it just wasn't the right time for this. And I commend the retailers for wanting to step up. I hope that they will take point on this to continue what they started with community cleanups and to encourage people in this community to take responsibility for their trash. You know, it's not an easy process, but we all live here. It's all our community. This is our home, and we need to take care of it.
Thank you. Anyone else? No. Nope. We all set? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Ayes have it. 8-0, 1 absent. Next order of business, Madam Clerk.
The July 23rd, 2026 Budget and Finance Standing Committee report.
Councilor Memard.
I'd like to move to accept the July 23rd, 26 Budget and Finance Standing Committee report as a consent agenda.
Motion made by Counselor Memard, seconded by Counselor Grow. Discussion.
Anything anybody needs to take off?
All those in favor of accepting it as a consent agenda?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Ayes have it, 8-0, one absent. Counselor Memard, do you want to give us a summary?
I will give you a brief summary of what we voted on. The first was a memorandum from our Regional Prevention Director requesting acceptance of a $375,000 grant from the Peter and Elizabeth C. Tower Foundation. This is something we coordinate with other North Shore communities, and it's a 3-year period, and there is no local match for this grant. And Chelsea and her team did a great presentation for us at the Budget and Finance Committee. The second was a memorandum from the Assistant Fire Chief requesting acceptance of the 2025 MEMA EMPG Grant Award in the amount of $23,040. And this is for the purpose of conducting regional hazmat tabletop exercises, and its grant period is through June 30th, 2027, and there is an in-kind local match for this grant. Third was a memorandum from the Economic Development Coordinator requesting our acceptance of the Essex National Heritage Commission Grant Award of for 2026 in the amount of $2,500. This is a repeating grant. Number 4 was a memorandum from our Veteran Services Director requesting acceptance of donations totaling $275 from Patricia Priesalt, Ed Camo, William Corley, and Ed Camo. Again, and we thank them for that. We then had a memorandum from the auditor regarding the city's 2025 Annual Comprehensive Financial Report, or ACRF. This is our 9th year receiving this recognition, and I urge you all to take a look at the details of that reflected in the minutes of our meeting. There was an extensive presentation that Kenny Costa made for us, and it's something we should be very proud about in terms of how the city's finances are well managed. And then the final item we considered was just our regular, we had a memorandum from the auditor regarding the Gloucester Public Schools end-of-year report and the independent accountant's report on that. And that concluded our meeting. Thank you.
Thank you. Next order of business, Madam Clerk.
The July 20th, 2026 Ordinances and Administration Standing Committee Report.
Counselor Nolan.
There is no items under this heading tonight. Thank you.
Next order of business, Madam Clerk.
The July 22nd, 2026 Planning and Development Standing Committee Report.
Counselor Grow.
Thank you. We had a couple of special event applications, requests for street closures. One is the Lone Gull 10K road race, which will be occurring on September 20th, 2026, with the rain date of September 27th, 2026. That was approved. And a special event application, event 2646, request for street closures for the Fish Box Derby race on September 20th, 2026, with a rain date of September 27th, 2026. Just to be noted, whereas those used to be on Roger Street and Main Street, the new location is Gloucester Avenue. So that's the place to see some pretty hardcore racing. Third item was a memorandum from the General Counsel regarding Massachusetts Electric Company grant of an easement for 50 Essex Avenue. And with that, I would make a motion to Councilor Gross, seconded by Councilor Benson. Planning and Development voted 3 in favor, 0 opposed, to recommend that City Council grant an easement to Mass Electric Company at 50 Essex Avenue for the purpose of installing, maintaining, and operating the overhead system and an underground electrical distribution system as shown on the plan entitled Electric Distribution Construction Easement WR 312-26179, dated January 7, 2026, and I so move.
Motion made by Counselor Grow, seconded by Counselor Kimberly.
Does anybody have any questions on what this is? It's primarily access for National Grid to access the new water treatment, wastewater treatment, excuse me, on Essex Avenue, and that's it. It allows them access to the property.
Any questions for Counselor Grow? Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Ayes have it, 8-0, one absent.
Last thing I'd like to mention, just for everybody here, that August 8th, excuse me, August 8th? No, that doesn't sound right. Next, this Saturday, August 1st. August 1st at 9 a.m., there will be a site visit for 4 Clay Court at 9 a.m. For all the counselors to attend if you're interested in that project. That will be at 9 a.m., 4-day court, August 1st, Saturday. This is coming Saturday. That's it.
J Court is off Essex Avenue.
It's off Essex Avenue, correct.
Former. Next order of business, Madam Clerk.
Public hearing 2026, number 15, petition to the City Council to accept and lay out a public way regarding Deacon Farm Lane.
This is continued from July 14th, and it will be continued until August 11th. Next order of business, Madam Clerk.
Public hearing 2026, number 11, special council permit 2026, number 3, the application of Gloucester, Maine LLC to construct a mixed-use residential development, including 40 residential units and retail and/or restaurant space, GZO sections 1.8.3, standard to be applied, 1.10.1, jurisdiction of the City Council and Zoning Board of Appeals, subsection A, City Council, 3.2.2, dimensional requirements for multifamily dwellings and their accessory uses other than signs. Footnote A, minimum lot area per dwelling unit or minimum open space per dwelling unit. 2.3.1, residential uses, subsection 8, conversion to or new multifamily or apartment dwelling, 7 or more dwelling units. 3.1.6b, building heights in excess of 35 feet, and 5.7.5, special permit criteria, major project at Main Street number 150, map 8, lot 64 in the CB and CCD district.
And I will open the public hearing. And now, speaking in favor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. For the record, Deborah Ellison, Ellison Law Office, 470 Washington Street, Gloucester. Tonight, the applicant is Gloucester, Maine LLC, and with us for that LLC is Chris Boyce, Glenn Warren, and Brian Mueller. The architects are Teal and Michael LeBlanc and Catherine Bilgen are here tonight, and the engineer is Hancock Associates, and James Polakowitz is here tonight for any technical questions you might have. If I may share my screen. The property is located at 150 Main Street, which is the former Santander Bank. And tonight, what we'd like to do is give you a legal summary of the requested relief, a brief overview of the project, the architect's presentation of the design, and a legal summary of why the requested relief should be granted. The applicant is converting the building presently permitted for a bank and seeking to convert it to a mixed residential and commercial space. The bank has not been operational at this location for several years, leaving a hole in the fabric of both Main Street and Middle Street neighborhoods. The property sits in both the CB and the CCD district. The Main Street building is in CB, and the Middle Street building is in the CCD district. Also, approximately half of the lot, which is the Middle Street side, sits within the historic district. The Main Street portion does not. As you may know, commercial uses in the CB and CCD zones have 0 front, rear, and side yard setback requirements, and they may be constructed lot line to lot line. And the bank was, in fact, constructed that way. Residential uses do have setbacks with a multiplier based on height, hence the need for variances from the ZBA for this project. The applicant has received all the relief it needs other than from the City Council. On January 8th, 2026, the Zoning Board of Appeals voted by unanimous vote to grant variances for lot width, front yard, side yard, portion of parking aisle width, and front yard vegetative cover on Main Street. And despite the complexities of this site, the project required only 5 variances. If this were a commercial site, none of the setback variances would have been required. On January 13, the Historic District Commission voted by unanimous vote to grant a certificate of appropriateness with one single design-related condition that has been met and that has been incorporated into the plans that were filed with the City Council. On June 18th, the Planning Board, by unanimous vote, recommended that the City Council approve the major project special permit. And on July 22nd, 2026, P&D Committee, by unanimous vote, recommended that the City Council approve the major project. With the relief requested, there will be a special permit under GZO 2.3.18 for a multifamily with 40 units, special permit under GZO 5.7.1 for major project with 61 bedrooms, special permit under 3.2.2 footnote A to reduce the lot area per dwelling and the open space per dwelling, and special permit under 3.1.6B for a building over 35 feet in height. The project has been thoughtfully designed to fit into 2 distinct neighborhoods. It abuts both Main Street and Middle Street. Great consideration has been given to its residential and commercial abutters. The applicant has reached out to the residential abutters, left a letter, given their contact information, met with several residential abutters to go over the plans and answer their questions. Also met with the Bank Gloucester representatives, which directly abuts the project, and other business owners along Main Street to explain the project. GMGI filed a letter of support with the city clerk. Tom O'Grady of the Cut sent a letter of support to the councilors. Seti Robinson has also sent a letter of support on her own behalf and on behalf of Housing for All Gloucester. And the applicant spoke to the owners of Short and Main and received verbal support from them. The applicant intends to continue to maintain contact with both its residential and business neighbors throughout the process. And now I'd like to turn this over to Chris Boyce from Fox Creek to give you a general explanation of the project.
Thank you, Deb. Chris Boyce, 221 Woodside Ave of Winthrop. Good to see you all again this evening. I'm head of development for Fox Creek Capital. So a little bit about us. We are a family-owned real estate company based in Ipswich. So unlike some, I want to make clear that we're not here to build a project and move on. We're going to be long-term stewards of this asset. We invest our own capital. Glenn Warren is here as a principal owner in the communities that we know. We own our projects long-term. We'll manage and own them long-term. And we believe on investing with intention. And as hopefully you'll see tonight, designing with care. That really means that every decision that we make focuses on creating a project that honors the community that we're in. And that's what brought us to 150 Main Street. We started the design process with Util over a year ago. And through the last 10 months, as Deb pointed out on her previous slide, we've gone through the public review process and had the opportunity to meet with neighbors, local business owners, city staff, Historic District Commission, the ZBA, the Planning Board, and many of you here on the council. We've been asked a lot of thoughtful questions from each of those groups throughout the process. And I think we strongly believe that every conversation has made this project a bit better. At the same time, we've continued to ask ourselves one question throughout the design process. How can this project create the greatest benefit for Gloucester? And we believe that the answer for that question is reflected in the project that Util will walk you through tonight and we hope to present. This transforms an underutilized Main Street property into exactly the type of mixed-use housing that the city's comprehensive plan encourages. It adds year-round residents where infrastructure already exists. It strengthens downtown businesses. It reinforces the walkable character that makes Main Street special. 2 thoughtfully scaled buildings with just 20 homes may sound like a modest project, but together those 40 homes mean 40 new households living downtown. Downtowns don't thrive just because of the buildings that occupy them. They thrive because people choose to live there. That's why housing is economic development. Those 40 households become new customers for Main Street businesses, new neighbors supporting local restaurants. They become more activity throughout the year from those year-round residents. They offer a stronger local tax base and more housing choices for people who want to call Gloucester home. Of the 40 units, this project provides 10% inclusionary housing at 60% AMI. So it continues to offer new housing choices in Gloucester. We've worked closely with Hancock Associates, Bowman Consulting, a large consulting team, and city staff to understand the project's overall impacts, utility impacts, but primarily transportation. Transportation is always a concern downtown, as is parking. This project provides all residential parking provided in an underground garage below the two buildings. The analysis about our parking and traffic study confirms this project fits comfortably into the capacity of the surrounding street network, while adding more people who can walk and support those local businesses. Ultimately, this project is about taking a vacant site and creating something that contributes to Gloucester every day. 2 buildings, 20 homes each, 40 new homes in total, an underutilized site transformed into housing, ground floor retail, new investment, and a stronger Main Street. Those are the outcomes we anticipate this project will deliver. But good projects are not just measured by what they contribute. As I stated earlier, they're also really measured by how thoughtfully they're designed to fit into the fabric of their surroundings. With that, I want to turn it over to Michael LeBlanc, who I think everybody's met from UTIL, who'll show you how we work to achieve those outcomes through thoughtful architecture, careful site planning, and a design that responds to the character of downtown Gloucester. Michael?
Thank you, Chris. Michael LeBlanc of UTIL Architecture and Planning. We are working with Fox Creek on the project, and hopefully you'll think the design we have here tonight is as thoughtful as Chris has been telling us it is. But, so just starting with the existing conditions of the site. The current site is an underutilized lot with a vacant building, an unused parking lot, and in our opinion, it is in need of infill development, all the things and all the benefits that come with that Chris just pointed out. To our east, we have the Gloucester Bank complex, which is actually kind of a great neighbor for us. There's a laneway along the edge of our site, which gives a little breathing room for the project. To our west is 75 Middle Street, 6 Hancock Street, and also the commercial buildings along Main Street. There's about 15 feet of grade change on the site between Main Street and Middle Street. This poses all kinds of challenges for us, but also gives us a kind of great opportunity to tuck our parking underneath the building, as we'll talk more about as we go. Because our site stretches all the way from Main Street, 5 minutes, okay, we're gonna move then. Let's go quick. Thanks for the reminder. So we'll keep going here. So because we stretch from Main Street to Middle Street, we had to look at both contexts. We have the historic context of Middle Street. For us, there are many different scales and materials and types on Middle Street, but what we're most interested there is the residential scale, the materiality seen throughout the historic district, characterized by pitch roofs, wood clapboards, shingles, that sort of thing. Main Street is characterized by active ground floor uses built right up to the property lines, creating a well-defined pedestrian experience at the sidewalks. Over the storefronts, there are typically 1 or 2 and sometimes 3 additional stories that range in uses from commercial to residential. And I would say that Main Street is the very definition of a pedestrian-friendly, active and vibrant street. We also looked at your uses along Main Street, and really what we recognize is that our project right now kind of presents a missing tooth in the vibrancy and activity of Main Street. We also looked a little bit at some of the existing buildings. This is a kind of diagram of all the buildings in the downtown area that are above 40 feet in height. And we also, as you can see in this kind of trace over image on the right, one of the things we love about downtown Gloucester is the kind of variety that you see embedded within all of the different parcels up and down, and creating a really kind of active and beautiful composition. So the existing site, as we talked about, stretches from Main on the right to Middle on the left, 15 feet of grade change. We also have frontage on Hancock Street. You can see the existing bank building shown here. And as Chris and Deb had just pointed out, we are breaking our project up into two smaller buildings of 21 units at Middle Street and 19 at Main Street, allowing us to bring our parking vehicles in off of Hancock Street. So just a real quick evolution of how the massing started. If this represents the kind of zoning envelope that could be permitted on the site for a residential use, we started by the obvious thing of pushing the front of the building out to Main Street, which is consistent with all of the storefronts. We then looked at the middle part of the block and said, it might be a lot better for us to kind of pull away from that part of the project, maybe reallocate some of that massing to the Main Street building. We then looked at the part of our project between the Middle Street building and some of our neighbors along Hancock Street, and determined by pushing our building a little bit to the east and adding that additional mass to the pitched roofs and all of that, that we were coming up with a better solution. We then looked at the front of the building. We had heard some conversations and some comments from people at the city and neighbors that maybe that front area on Main Street might use a little bit more kind of sculpting to make it not feel so tall. So we did start to step back those front parts of Main Street in order to reduce any perception of height along that street. So this is, what I was referring to before. You can see this section through the site. Middle Street's on the left, Main on the right. You can see where our parking can be tucked under the Middle Street building, and what that allows us for is daylighting all of our active uses on Main Street, and we thought this was kind of a really great opportunity for the project. Again, just a kind of quick look. Again, that's that same traceover image on the left. On the right, just how we are trying to incorporate a sort of good mitigating scale, one which is responsive to our context here on Main Street. We also ran several shadow studies. Okay, shadow studies, punchline there is that the worst effects of the site were in the winter months when people aren't outside. Some quick views of the project from Main Street. You can see how the stepping back of the building begins to really reduce the scale at that point. A view from the looking east along Main Street. Again, looking west along Main Street. Moving up to Middle Street, you can see how the building is articulated as though it's two smaller scaled buildings so that it's in scale with the historic district. How our roof lines and pitched roofs match neighboring buildings. The lush planting between our building and the neighbors. This is the approach into the parking, which you can see has a reduced impact in presence from any of the public ways. This is off of Hancock Street.
May I have to wrap it up?
President, could I make a motion that
We have
grant?
questions. We have questions. I'm sure a lot of this will come out.
I
in the
understand, but
questions,
we have,
we have
if I can be allowed to articulate my
But we
point.
didn't need to get all the information about the company. They used their time not
I understand,
necessarily
but we have,
effectively.
generally speaking, given latitude to applicants to explain difficult and comprehensive projects like this. I think adding a couple of minutes to allow them to summate this, or 5 minutes, and then giving any opposition the same would be certainly within our normal operating procedure.
A motion to extend it.
A motion.
I move that we allow the applicant an additional 5 minutes and any opposition also 5 minutes to explain their positions to completion.
Second.
Motion made by Councilor Gross, seconded by Councilor Benson. Discussion. I think, and I just want to say for general knowledge, and you come before us very often, Deb, but you know that it's a 15-minute timeline that people are given at the beginning of a public hearing. So I think that we need to exercise that use of time as efficiently as possible.
And I do understand that, Mr. Council President. The issue is, of course, with a major project and a project that's requesting certain zoning relief, as the applicant, we have a legal obligation to provide you with all of the information on the record.
And we usually get to that through the question period later. mean,
Although we have, in order to make sure that that happens, we do have to follow a formal process, especially going through the criteria of 1.8.3, 5.7.1. So I would request the council's indulgence to allow us to do that, so everything that's required is on the record.
all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Ayes have it, 7-0, 2 absent.
We were at the very tail end of the design presentation just to talk about the landscape and all of that, but I think at this point, handing it off to Deb would be the best way to go.
Thank you. And I will, as quickly as I can, go through the standards, and they are all in the presentation. So 1.8.3, the project's in harmony with the general purpose and intent of the ordinance. It will not adversely affect the neighborhood, the zoning district, or the city, or outweigh the beneficial benefits. It advances the city's stated goal for downtown revitalization and housing production, contributing to vitality and walkability of the downtown, a new year-round residential units, harmony with the historic district by replacing the parking lot, unanimous vote of the ZBA, HDC, Planning Board, as well as Planning and Development, and 4 on-site units at 60% AMI. Traffic assessment has been done, substantial reduction in peak hour traffic. GZO parking requirements are met. On Middle Street, it creates a continuous frontage for pedestrian frontage, and the housing production plan states that this is a walker's paradise, and we will be accentuating that. The adequacy of utilities, they will be updated as necessary, and all necessary utilities are available. Neighborhood character on the Main Street sides consistent with downtown, and there's a mid-block garden, and on Middle Street it's consistent with the residential area. It eliminates the visible parking consistent with other buildings on Middle and Main, and fits comfortably within the existing streetscapes. It's a thoughtful infill development. Natural environment will be greatly improved, and it is not within any protected resource area or flood zone, and there's minimal green space, and it's mostly impervious. Fiscal impact will be more productive and appropriate use of the site. New residential and commercial tax revenue supports surrounding property values, advances the highest and best use of the site while delivering tangible benefits. It is not within any FEMA flood zones, et cetera. Under 5.7.5, it meets the guidelines that the council must follow. All vehicular access is off of Hancock Street. Main Street and Middle will be pedestrian only. Site plan shows the required access points, drainage, and utilities serving the buildings. Majority of parking is screened and below grade. Parking lighting will be avoid glare on adjoining properties, robust landscape plan, and avoids major topographical alterations. All requirements of the zoning ordinance and building codes will be met. Multifamily residential use in a non-residential area. This is a use that's entirely consistent with the downtown, balances mixed-use development with both residential and commercial functions. With regard to 1.10.1A and 3.2.2A, with regard to minimum lot area per dwelling unit and minimum open space, when you have a downtown development, essentially the downtown is your backyard, and it provides your entertainment. It's within walking distance of many Gloucester amenities, such as the Harbor Walk, as well as the beaches. And with regard to height, the building height in excess of 35 feet, such increase is consistent with the neighborhood character and would be substantially less detrimental to the neighborhood. Requested heights, deliberate, carefully calculated according to, as you saw in Mr. LeBlanc's presentation. The Main Street building measures 52 feet, but the experienced as a 3-story building, and Middle Street's entirely consistent with other buildings in that neighborhood. The 2 distinct buildings, the heights distributed and articulated, creating visual relief and preserving light and air between the buildings. And therefore, we'd ask respectfully that you support this project, and we're happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Thank you. Anyone else would like to speak in favor?
Is this on? Yes. So I'm Sonny Robinson. I live at 20 Harvard Street. I'm speaking for myself as an individual as well as for Deanna Fay, and also on behalf of the housing advocacy organization Housing for All Gloucester. In a word, we think this is a very good project. We believe it meets all of the criteria for a special permit from City Council, and we urge you to move it ahead tonight and approve it. Looking at some of those criteria, I think the most important is to take a look at the social, economic, and community needs. This provides 40 more units of year-round housing in the downtown neighborhood. And 4 of those units, as they pointed out, are deed restricted affordable and wonderfully deed restricted voluntarily at the 60% level, which is certainly more in line with the actual income guidelines of Gloucester than 80%. And while we certainly would love it if more than 4 units were in fact deed restricted in that way, we also recognize that we will never meet all the rental needs that we have in Gloucester until we have a sufficiently broad base of rental units, regardless of whether they are market or affordable. The other thing that I think is really good about this project is that 60% of the proposed units are 2-bedroom units, and 30% are 1-bedroom, and only 10% are studio. That is a great advance as compared to some of the other projects we've seen recently and that we know are upcoming, which are either studio or 1-bedroom. The opportunities that become available with a 2-bedroom apartment and who could rent it and how they could use it are enormously different than a studio or a 1-bedroom. The other thing that I think is true is the retail space on the first floor is good for all of the city. So we have at least 40 more people, and maybe more than 40, living right downtown that can utilize all of the amenities and other retail spaces along Main Street. I think the traffic and the parking has been very carefully planned so that, in fact, there is recessed garage space. The traffic flow will be out to Hancock Street, the least busy of the 3 streets in the area.
15 seconds.
Well, I'm going to run out of time in saying all the good things that I think are sayable about this project. I believe the criteria are thoroughly met. I urge you to approve it. And the one additional thing I would say, ask of the developers that as they move forward to take on tenants, that in fact, they adhere to the 70% allowable local first preference. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Good evening, Mr. President, councilors. I'm Catherine Schlichty. I live at 14 Pleasant Street. I step out on my back deck and I look at this project. The last several years, we've looked at a vacant Santander Bank building, an empty parking lot that's full of weeds, trash, and the occasional shopping cart. So I'm very happy to see this project go in there. I think it's really well thought out and well designed, with the stepping back of the height on Main Street. The structures on Middle Street are beautiful, the open space, certainly adequate parking for all the residents. I think it hits all the high points. So I also, most importantly, think that having all these market rate residential units on Main Street will be a big shot in the arm for Main Street and help keep it moving forward with vitality. And I look forward, I hope you support this, and I look forward to seeing it completed. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. Sean Henry, 14 Pleasant Street. For the record, member of the planning board. I had recused myself from the hearing of this during the planning board because we are abutters to abutters, and State Ethics Commission suggested I recuse myself from the planning board portion of this, but said I could come and advocate it for it when it was no longer before us. I'm here to do that tonight. Again, bit of history. When I first moved here in 1988, 89, we lived at 14 Pleasant Street, did that through 1997 when we moved to West Gloucester. After living in West Gloucester for a number of years, we elected to move back downtown in 2013. We've been abutters to this project ever since. We love living in downtown. I think downtown is very vibrant. Could be more vibrant by bringing more people down. As also, as planning board member, I'm also formally a member of the Housing Production Plan Committee that drafted the 2017 plan, and currently on the Housing Compass, Housing Production Plan Working Group, working on our new housing production plan, and this is exactly the type of development that we've said we've needed for 10 years. Actually, I think we started that 2017 housing production plan in 2015. So 11 years we've said we've needed to do this exact type of infill redevelopment throughout our downtown. It preserves green space in our outlying areas. It revamps and revitalizes the downtown area. 40 new units with 4 units is 60 AMI, which is exactly what Gloucester needs. 60 AMI serves our city well. But as Catherine mentioned, also having those market rate units downtown, spending in our restaurants, spending in our stores, that's also a great thing. Tomorrow night in this very building, we'll be unveiling the Housing Compass Plan. It speaks to a lot of this that is much needed. I hope all of you will come and listen to that because we need much more of this in the future, much more of this throughout the city. Thank you.
Thank you.
I just want to say that I'm in favor of this project. Sorry, Barnaby
Name and address.
Prendergast, 61 Fernald Street. Just want to say I'm in favor of this project. As the previous people have already said, there's a great need for housing in this city. Having the deeper deed-restricted affordable housing is great. I know there's a lot of concern right now as we're in a drought about water supply and whether or not the city can continue to support this many people. It's worth noting that modern appliances that will be going into this building will actually be far more water efficient than many of the traditional older appliances that exist in already built homes. The environmental issues have been very carefully addressed in terms of rainfall and flow onto into the sewage system. The architectural details I actually think are very attractive. I think it's one of the more attractive things that I've seen with the stepping back on the Main Street facade. I like that there's green space within the construction. It's not too crowded, which is great. There's a positive fiscal impact for the city, not just from the economic terms of people being able to walk to stores, and but also for the revenue for the city's tax base. And given that the Main Street at that point is about 30 feet above sea level and rises, I think they said 15 feet, it's well outside any kind of current or near future flood risk. So that's also great. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else in the room? Okay, we have, the mayor is online. Oh, sorry, you're gonna have to wait, Mr. Mayor.
Oh, wait.
Hi, Marcia Hart, 2 Fremont Street in Gloucester. Um, I'm sorry that there's really no excuse for me to get up here and talk because I haven't been following this project and it's so late into it and the plans looked really nice. I am totally for housing in Gloucester, totally for housing downtown in Gloucester. I think it is an economic development issue. I wish I had seen the landscaping because I'm interested in that. Years and years ago, I was subcontracted to do the gardens that were up near the top by Middle Street when there was a functioning bank there. And they had beautiful espaliered trees along a brick wall and it was very small, but it was gorgeous. And that got me thinking about connecting Gloucester so that it had some sort of a city center, which I don't think that we have. We have all kinds of components of a wonderful heart of the city, but there really isn't one. And I've always thought, just to go back to the beginning of this meeting, that I4C2 is one of the parts of that concept in my mind. So it begins at the post office and City Hall and the museum, and it went through that corridor, through that parking lot, by that beautiful wall with the landscaping on it. Through that little corridor, they put that silly fishnet painting on at one point, down to I4C2, straight through across the harbor to the paint factory. So I'm wondering, did anybody think that the most wonderful thing that could be done for Gloucester was to leave some sort of corridor for the public to go from our historic district, our municipal district, to our historic district, to our main street, to our industrial district, across the harbor to Rocky Neck and out to the main harbor, because that would be creating, it's the only chance that I've ever been able to come up with that Gloucester could develop some sort of semblance of a city center, connecting the dots. And you're going to be redeveloping I4C2, so I think they all should have been thought of together. It's a wonderful project. I'm sorry I'm so late doing this. And it probably isn't possible for anything to happen with it because of my negligence. But I had to say what I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you. You're up, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. President. Paul Lundberg, Mayor of Gloucester, 9 Dale Avenue, which is in this neighborhood. I wanted to just say 2 quick things. All of the recitation of the zoning requirements and all that was perfectly done, so we all know that it complies. I just wanted to make 2 comments. Having more residents downtown is an economic development tool. And the downtown merchants will, to a person, tell you that that is a very important part of what we're doing in terms of making our city a destination. This is a really perfect project for that lot. And we talk a lot about neighborhood character, and the developer has done a great job of accommodating that concept of neighborhood character. One other comment I'd like to make, those of us who have been involved in evaluating plans for many years we all hope that we see a really good plan and a good process. And I think that the way that the developer has done this and approached the city and all of the different boards that were necessary is a model for what we hope in the future. So I'm heartily in favor of this and hope that you can vote for it. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else to speak in favor? No, speak in opposition? Name and address for the record, please. You're muted. Beverly, you're muted.
Now? Oh.
Yep.
I was hitting the button over and over. Okay.
Can you turn your volume down, please?
Yeah, what's happening here?
Oh, you're logged in twice.
How about now?
Okay.
Great.
Name and
Okay.
address.
8 Commonwealth Avenue in Gloucester. First of all, I'd like to say that, to my knowledge, our population in Gloucester has been the same for many years. I don't think we're experiencing a population loss. So I don't see how adding these people to that building is really going to affect the city, positive or negative. As I understand it, we're having an affordable housing crisis. I don't see 4 units out of 40 as helping us in that regard, because that would leave us with 36 essentially unaffordable units. Are these units going to be affordable to the people who live here? I don't think so. It seems more and more people are moving in from out of town. And I don't know how many of them are year-round residents. In terms of the commercial space, helping Main Street, we have an awful lot of unused commercial space now on Main Street. What is being proposed to go in? At first, I heard it was a restaurant. Now I'm not sure. Regarding the unused parking lot, that parking lot's going to be filled up with a building. It would be fine if it had been a parking lot. I guess there was no discussion about maybe the city buying that parking lot, which we could use. The height of the building, I think, is excessive. The photos that they showed, looks to me that this 5 levels are higher than any of the older photos showed. Let's see what else I have got here. Regarding the downtown being the backyard of people living there, I think that's really pretty silly. I live essentially downtown. We're very close. It's very dense. And I treasure any outside space that we have. I don't see that what's provided there. I think we should be using and adhering to the zoning regulations that we have. Every proposal is always cutting back. And I don't think we should be cutting back on open space.
15
We really
seconds,
need
Beverly.
open space. And I think at the ZBA meeting, it was mentioned that the style of the building on Middle Street fit in. To me, that looks very contemporary, the proposed building,
You gotta
compared to the
wrap it up.
beautiful
You
old
gotta wrap it
buildings.
up, Beverly.
Okay, fine. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else want to speak in opposition? Seeing none. Do we have any communications, Madam Clerk?
There were several communications that were sent to the city clerk's office, which have been forwarded to the city council. One was from Carol Shula, who had concerns about shadowing, operational impacts, outdoor lighting, the effectiveness of landscape buffers, preservation of her existing driveway access, and the location and design of the garage ventilation. She had wanted those concerns addressed. We have a communication from F. Rob Jackson. He was writing to express concerns. He was opposed to the plans for the project, which are highlighted in his letter. And we have a communication from Bonnie Fendrock of Gloucester Maritime Genomics Institute, who was in favor of the project.
Thank you. We will now have questions from councilors. Councilor Benson.
Thank you. So I appreciate all of you during the subcommittee at Planning and Development answering constituents' questions. A few constituents since the P&D meeting asked, did you ever consider going over the requirements of the inclusionary housing, adding more units? Was there any consideration there?
Yes, that was discussed early on with the Community Development Office. And given the financial and economic aspects of the project, it wasn't possible to do that. But we are absolutely committed to doing the 60% AMI.
Thank you.
Councilor Kimberly.
Yeah. We heard from Ms. Robinson and also from Ms. Palmici, is that her name? Palmachi on the phone or on Zoom, questioning about giving local preference for renters. Have you all thought about that?
We have, and I guess I can say it's a focus. And anecdotally, we've already received a bunch of calls from people who want to be on a list, which we said not until we've gone through this full process. The benefit of that is we're already starting to see some beneficial real estate cycles. People that live in large homes in Rockport and Gloucester are looking to downsize and want to be in an amenity-rich downtown. They're hoping to be more walkable with less to maintain, which then opens up those homes for families and others. So there's been 3 of those calls already that have come in for the 40 units, and we anticipate, we hope, more, but that certainly is a focus of our leasing strategy.
Councilor Page.
Hi, thank you. The one question I would have is the request for reduction in lot area per dwelling unit. That metric governs density, and it's quite different than what the allowable lot area per unit is there. I just wanted to ask, how did you come about that number of 40 for that density? I understand the 4 units cut into what you need to do. That's really important to understand, but I was just wondering how you come to 40 for that lot.
And before I let
Or
Chris,
more like why?
before I let Chris answer that, I think if you look at the buildings downtown, you'll know that none of those units meet the requirements in the ordinance for the most part. And that's because with a downtown, you don't want to have big vacant spaces. You want to have buildings next to each other, which is what we have. And so it's not an unusual request for a project like this, but I will have Chris address the issue of the 40 units.
Thank you. 40 specifically, I mean, we came from the housing supply plan, we looked at the comprehensive plan in terms of housing downtown with a goal of trying to provide as much housing as we could economically offer. There's a real large expense to splitting into 2 buildings and creating more open space. That's 2 elevators, that's 4 additional stairs, so there's a lot of space that's required when we split it. We still felt that was the best move to create a green space and canopy between the buildings and more frontage and green space on Middle Street. But in order to make that viable, we had to hit certain unit counts to make the project actually pencil.
It was an economic decision.
Exactly right.
Thank you.
Yep.
And I
Councilor
think
Grow. Oh, go ahead,
I
sorry.
was just going to say, to add to that, one of the things that you see with this project, which is unusual for a downtown project, is that garden space and open space in the middle.
I was just going to ask if you could briefly go over the commercial space on Main Street, since we sort of ran out of time on the overall presentation.
I'll stay close to it. The commercial space is 3,500 square feet. There's likely to be one tenant to take 3,500 square feet is our goal. We don't know who that will be yet. We're targeting, I think, as we mentioned on our site walk, and we didn't get a chance to talk about tonight, but we're targeting restaurant. Restaurants for us are a really active use, which is a lot of foot traffic, vibrancy, gathering space, community connection, a place that people know and will go to. And we feel like that end of Main Street could really benefit from a little more gathering and noise. We had a great meeting with Tom O'Grady at the Cut, who was also excited about that aspect of it, really kind of the synergy between evening entertainment use and late afternoon or lunchtime dining is kind of our focus. That retail space at 3,500 square feet could also be split into two retailers. So that is an option. There's a steep grade on that sidewalk, so we would limit how many retailers we could have. The max is two. One at 3,500 is really our target.
Councilor Grace.
Thank you. You ran out of time in your presentation, so not a lot of time was spent on the green space that's being incorporated into this. So if you could just, I think it's important for the people that are listening now to hear
You can
a little
bring
bit.
that up if you wish.
Well, Deb brings it up, and I'll let Michael kind of speak to this as our architect, but there's publicly accessible green space off Middle Street with a recessed bench for respite and real public engagement and interaction. That's where the Middle Street entrance also exists. There is a terra firma green space, so built on land that extends from Middle Street all the way to our Hancock Street extension. That'll be planted in green throughout with new tree canopy, new flowering and flora. And then there's a green roof section that sits between the two buildings above the parking, which brings light and air through that space and adds a canopy that doesn't otherwise exist in downtown.
Thanks, Chris. Yeah, so it was, I believe, right at the landscape portion of this that we had to kind of shift over to more housekeeping issues. But you know, we're looking very closely to local precedents here. Right across the street at 90 Middle Street, there's a kind of beautiful landscape, which is, you know, quite historic and really, you know, we thought it was really quite nice. So using that, emulating instances like that and precedents like that around the project is something we've been very interested in doing. We are prioritizing local tree species that require less water, that require less maintenance. You know, we're not irrigating most of this other than at the very beginning to get them off on the right foot. Some of the plants that will be built on rooftops will need to be irrigated, of course. But anyway, the nature of the plantings is as you see here. We'll quickly talk about the three different main areas of landscape that we're talking about. And I also want to mention that there are a couple of mature trees on Main Street that we're very interested in making sure we preserve them. We're going to be working with the DPW to see if we could start doing some early, slow pruning to those so that we don't stress them out during the construction process, also amending the soil with supplemental nutrients for those. But on Main Street, we've got a kind of setback of the building at that point. There's two kind of massings to that building. They set back differentially from Main Street. What we're doing there is really trying to provide a place that there's a lot of green, trees, a bench for people to sit if they so choose as they're walking along the sidewalk there. We're also aligning the front of our building with the front of 75 Main just to the left of us. By virtue of the way the street kind of is not quite parallel to the front of some of these buildings, that allows us to kind of you know, increase our landscape along the front. Between 75 Middle and 6 Hancock, which is our western side, or in this particular diagram that we have here, the bottom of the page. We've got a fairly robust landscape there that goes all the way from Middle Street down to where our parking entrance is going to be. And then we have this mid-block garden that we've been talking about, which is just about 2,800 square feet of plantings, seating area, and all of that built on the roof of the parking garage. Again, with plantings that are local, that change colors throughout the seasons, and that are really thoughtfully selected by our landscape architect offshoots.
Thank you. One more. And also because of the time crunch in the beginning, we didn't get a lot into the entrance to the parking garage and what's being done to mitigate noise and pollution and disruption to the abutters.
Sure. Let's see. But we can stay right here, I think. We do have our parking entry off of Hancock Street. There is a two-way drive that gets you to a single lane door. Again, we're trying to reduce the vehicle presence from the public realm as much as we can. We've got 34, I think it's 34 spaces inside the garage. We have 6 spaces outside in essentially the current location that they are today, as you see it today. Parking in and out will be handled by a system that we are going to be specifying for the project, which allows cars as they come in, and the reason we had to do this is because of the smaller door there. Cars as they come in, they will trigger a red light on the inside. So if a car is coming on the way coming out, they will know to stop, make way for that car coming in, or vice versa. We're prioritizing the cars that are inbound so that we don't have cars queuing out in the approach to that garage door. We do expect very low traffic counts here in general. Our peak hours are around 20 cars in or out, depending on morning or evening, and 6 cars going in the opposite direction in a peak hour. Other than that, the inflow and outflow into that parking garage is going to be really quite low. We also, I think this is another important point. We made a decision to enclose the garage at the base there for a couple of reasons. One, it's going to limit any sound, pollution, or light flow, or escaping from that garage to the neighboring buildings. The cost that comes with that is that we have to mechanically ventilate the garage up through the roof of the building, keeping any of the CO that might come off the cars, away from the neighbors and kind of blowing it up through the top of the building.
Thank you.
If the only thing I'd like to mention is that Ms. Shula had provided a letter to the board with her concerns, and we had a fairly robust discussion with her at the P&D committee meeting, and we believe that we have addressed those concerns as explained by Mr. LeBlanc.
Thank you. You touched upon the public bench. Could you just on this just remind me where that is? You said, so this will be public, the public will be able to access this.
Right up here, I believe,
Okay.
right off of Middle Street.
Okay. Thank you. And it's going to be like a bench or? Okay.
Yep, as it shows here, it's a bench, a little courtyard, and then gardens.
That's
maybe
excellent.
behind it.
And the public, and remind just, you know how I like ask, it's going to be the public would be able to access that.
Yes.
Correct. Okay. Another question, but you can go first.
I just wanted to know, I know that because you're closing off the entrance to the current parking area there, that it's going to create more parking spaces. Do you know how many?
I would estimate
Thank you.
2 parallel, just so people at home can hear.
Benson.
Yeah, thank you. A couple other questions is, if this is approved tonight, when would construction begin?
If approved tonight, we'd like to begin exploratory demo and early demo on the building end of this year, and we'd probably start meaningful construction through the winter so that we don't have any impacts on Main Street by next summer.
Okay, that's good to know. And then I don't know if anyone else has any questions, just one more question for you. Is when you're looking at, I ask a lot of projects this question, will you use local construction workers, local landscapers as much as possible? I'd encourage that. But if you can commit to, obviously that's not a condition, but if you can commit that to me, I'd appreciate that. So
Absolutely.
thank you.
Yep.
Councilor Grace.
Yeah, I appreciate the wanting to, be quick about getting things underway with this, but there's another project that's going to be happening down the other end of Main Street. So is thought being given we can't have both ends of Main Street under construction at the same time? Does that make sense? Has there been
It does make sense as
any
a concern.
coordination with the other type of development that's going on downtown, just so that we don't have more of a bottleneck than we already have?
I don't know their construction management plan or their schedule, in all honesty, but we will work with the city on our construction management plan, where loading comes from, and I'm sure that through that process, will be collaborative with how their loading process is working as well.
Okay, and I mean, to that point, would you construct the parking garage roof last so that you could access from your actual parking or staging construction?
Oh, got it. The way the construction will actually work is the parking creates a podium, a structural steel podium for the residential above, which will be a wood frame above. So that deck will be a structural deck. We'll be able to put equipment and cranes on it, but that'll be capped as our structural floor, essentially, for the residential that rises above that.
So yeah, so no is actually. Yeah,
No is the question. No is the
right,
answer.
but, and it makes perfect sense. It makes perfect sense. Also, I just also like to note that, there was a pretty robust peer review on this, particularly around drainage, and there were several findings that you have addressed. And I think that, we have no fear of any runoff from this site creating any issues for the city.
That's right. As a reminder, 100% of the stormwater that lands on site will be treated and maintained on site before it goes to the city system.
Councilor Graves.
I know when Beverly was speaking, she was talking about she felt as though the design of Middle Street was very contemporary. Can you just speak for a moment of what type of materials are going to be used specifically on the facade of that building, so that it does meld with the other buildings in the area, and the historic nature of them?
Sure. So first thing I will point to, we did go through a robust review with the Historic Commission on this. They voted unanimously that this was a very appropriate design for this area. But I would say that the basis of which they did that was, the massing of the building, again, the scaling of it, mitigating the larger building scale and making it feel more like the neighboring buildings. But in terms of materials and moves, the dormers, the pitched roofs, the double hung windows, clapboards on what would be our east building here, shingles on our west building here, differentiating those two things, the detailing around those windows and how that's being treated. These were all, we had a really long discussion about our 2 over 1 millions on our windows and all that. So those are the kinds of details that we're proposing, and that, the Historic Commission was really quite happy with.
Basically mirroring what type of design is in the buildings that are around it, so that there's a flow to it and it kind of melds in with the landscape rather than sticking out as a brand new building.
Yeah, I think it's hard to perfectly emulate an older building these days.
Yeah.
And intentionally, we are a little bit, let's say, interpreting all of the materiality and languages that we see of many of the existing buildings. But I would remind everyone that Middle Street has all kinds of buildings on it, many of which don't even come close to kind of picking up on the residential scale of the district that we're trying to do here.
Yeah, that's fair.
Any more questions? I'll close the public hearing. Committee report.
Committee report. On a motion, sit back and enjoy this. It's 3 pages long. On a motion by Councilor Gross, seconded by Councilor Kimberly, the Planning and Development Committee voted 3 in favor, 0 opposed, to recommend that on the basis of the revised submissions, the City Council grant the following special permits to Gloucester, Maine LLC to construct a mixed-use residential development containing 40 residential units and retail and/or restaurant space. 1, a special permit pursuant to GZO sections 1.10.1A, 1 and 3.16B for a proposed height of 52 feet 5 inches, as the proposed height will not be substantially detrimental to the neighborhood. The shadow study submitted demonstrates that there will be a minimal impact to the abutting properties. 2, special permits pursuant to sections 1.8.3, 2.3.18, and 5.7.5 to allow the conversion to a new multifamily building with 7 or more units in a major project with 11 or more dwelling units pursuant to GCO 5.7.1 on the site located at 150 Main Street on the basis that the requested special permits, 1, will be in harmony with the general purpose and intent of the ordinance, 2, will not adversely affect the neighborhood, the zoning district, or the city in such an extent as to outweigh the beneficial effects of said uses, 3, meet the criteria necessary for the grant of a special permit, that being A, the social, economic, and community needs that will be served by the proposed uses, B, traffic flow and safety, C, adequacy of utilities and other public services, D, neighborhood character and social structure, E, qualities of the natural environment, F, potential fiscal impact, and G, vulnerability to flooding and flood damage, taking into consideration projections for sea level rise, and find that the requested major project special permit will meet the criteria set forth in GZO section 5.7.5A through E. 3, a special permit pursuant to GZO sections 1.10.1A3 and 3.2.2, footnote A, to permit lesser minimum lot area and open space per dwelling unit, and find that the reduction of the required lot area dwelling unit from 2,500 square feet per dwelling unit to 593 square feet per dwelling unit, and the reduction of the required open space dwelling unit from 1,250 square feet per dwelling unit to 178 square feet per dwelling unit is in keeping with neighborhood character and structural density of the neighborhood. And 4, a special permit pursuant to GCO sections 1.10.1A1 and 3.1.6B to permit building height in excess of 35 feet, namely 52 feet 5 inches, and find that the increase in allowable height to 52 feet 5 inches for the project is consistent with neighborhood character and will not be substantially detrimental to the neighborhood because of obstruction of views, overshadowing of other properties, impairments of utilities, or other adverse impacts, with the following conditions. 1, there will be a screening between the applicant's property and the property at 6 Hancock Street made up of plantings of no more than 7 feet in height. As recommended by the fire chief, 1, the address be coordinated with city engineer's office for 911 adequate access to the parking garage for firefighting. 2, building clearances and access for firefighting rescue be evaluated from a 360-degree perspective. 3, the building is monitored by the central station fire alarm for the life of the building. 4, bidirectional amplification system, BDA, is required for public safety, main radio channels for police and fire. And 5, exterior walls to be composed of fire-resistant material, masonry, cement board, etc. We'll get back to that one. And as recommended by the planning board, 6, substantial conformance. The project shall be constructed in substantial conformance with the plans and materials submitted with the application as modified during the review process, and as may be further revised to address the technical comments of Weston and Sampson and response from Hancock Associates on behalf of the applicant. 7, final utility and drainage design. Prior to the issuance of a building permit, the applicant shall submit final utility grading, drainage, and stormwater management plans demonstrating compliance with applicable city regulations and the Massachusetts stormwater standards. Such plans shall include revisions necessary to A, capture, treat, and infiltrate stormwater runoff from impervious surfaces to the maximum extent practicable. B, provide final grading, spot elevations, drainage structure information, and drainage details. C, demonstrate proper drainage of landscape, garage, entrance, and pedestrian areas. And D, incorporate all agreed upon revisions identified during the peer review process. 8, Department of Public Works review. Prior to the issuance of a building permit, final water, sewer, drainage, and utility connection details shall be reviewed and approved by the Gloucester Department of Public Works. 9, building permit submissions. Prior to the issuance of a building permit, the applicant shall submit final engineering and construction documents, including retaining wall design, structural calculations, geotechnical recommendations, and other information required by the building commissioner and applicable codes. Such building permit application shall be subject to a third-party fire and building code review funded by the applicant. 10, compliance with laws and regulations. The project shall comply with all applicable provisions of the Gloucester zoning ordinance, state building code, fire code, accessibility regulations, stormwater regulations, and all other applicable local, state, and federal requirements. Any permits or approvals required from other agencies other than for demolition shall be obtained prior to the commencement of the associated work. 11, stormwater operation and maintenance. The applicant shall maintain all stormwater management facilities in accordance with the approved operation and maintenance plan and shall provide any required certifications, including a signed illicit discharge statement prior to issuance of a certificate of occupancy. 12, construction management. Prior to the issuance of a building permit, the applicant shall submit a construction management plan for review and approval by the police chief, fire chief, building commissioner, and the director of public works. Inclusionary zoning requirements. 13, inclusionary zoning. The project shall comply with the applicable provisions of section 5.11 of the zoning ordinance in terms of sequencing and timing of the construction of 4 on-site residential units offered at 60% of the average median income AMI, and recommend that the City Council adopt the following findings. 1, beneficial effects on the neighborhood. The City Council finds that the proposed use will not have adverse effect. The City Council finds that the proposed use will not have adverse effects which overbalance the beneficial effects of the neighborhood or the city. The project satisfies the criteria necessary for a special permit under section 1.8.3, 2.3.18, and 5.75. 2, social, economic, and community needs are served by the project. The project serves the social, economic, and community needs and advances of the city's stated goals for downtown revitalization and housing production. It will reintroduce active ground floor commercial use to the Main Street frontage of the site, replacing a vacant building with a mixed-use development that contributes to downtown Gloucester. Furthermore, the Middle Street side of the project is more consistent with the historic district and the neighborhood than the existing vacant parking lot. The creation of 40 residential dwelling units and approximately 3,500 square feet of new commercial space is expected to increase foot traffic in the downtown area, strengthen the customer base for nearby businesses, and support the long-term health of Main Street without placing additional demand on public parking resources. All required parking is provided on site. The project will also add 4 on-site affordable housing units at 60% area median income, directly contributing to the city's affordable housing inventory in a walkable, transit-accessible downtown location, and I so move.
Motion made by Councilor Groh, seconded by Councilor Benson. Discussion.
I'd like to make a motion to amend.
Councilor Groh.
Yes, it was pointed out in the post came look at this motion that number 5, exterior walls of be composed of fire-resistant material masonry cement board, conflict with the actual designs of the project that stated and the Historic District Commission expectations. Cedar shingles are similar, and it was pointed out that sections 9 and 10 cover the applicability of all state building and fire codes. So it was deemed by our city solicitor that number 5 could be amended, could be deleted from the condition, and not remove any of the strength of the actual conditions. So I would move that we remove Fire Chief recommendation number 5, and I so move.
Motion made by Councilor Groh, seconded by Councilor Dillon. Discussion on the amendment.
Only if you need it.
We have the Assistant Chief. Does anybody have any questions for the Assistant Chief, if that's acceptable?
That's you.
Did you follow any of that? Okay. Okay. Thank you. All right, no discussion. All those in favor on the amendment?
Aye.
Aye.
On the motion itself and on the project, I just want to point out that this is, as has been pointed out already, this is exactly the kind of development we need for downtown. We were all very excited when the cut came in and redeveloped a vacant storefront on Main Street. Now we're going to have additional housing units with people who are going to be, as Sean and Catherine have pointed out, members of Main Street community, and are going to be bringing their dollars and their senses of being down there and helping to revitalize Main Street in a way that I think only can be done with residential units on that Main Street. I really want to point out that the applicant has been exceptionally responsive to neighborhood concerns. We had, as was pointed out, a couple of very robust P&D meetings, far more conversation and back and forth than is typically seen at a subcommittee meeting. And the applicants were very concerned about making sure that neighbors were accommodated as much as possible. And I really appreciate that. It's always a sign that you have people doing a good project if they're concerned and doing good with the neighbors that are being affected by it. The 60% AMI is great. I mean, they could have gone 15% at 80%. I think we all, after many discussions, have realized that 80% is really just market rate, frankly, for most people in Gloucester. 60% adds actual units that are going to be affordable for people in this community, and I think that's a really important bonus. I just want to point out, people who are concerned about this, that our short-term rental regulations prohibit commercial or corporate ownership of short-term rentals, so it's not like there are going to be suddenly 40 short-term rentals downtown on Main Street. I hope you guys know that. I really endorse this project. I think it's exactly what we need down there, and I hope that the council will support it.
Councilor Grace.
Thank you. I think it's an extraordinarily well thought out and respectful design that has been put forth, especially with regard to Middle Street and the historic district, and making sure that what is built there keeps kind of the flow of the historic district and doesn't stick out like a sore thumb. And also the detail put into the way that the front of it on Main Street will be tiered so that it minimizes or mitigates that kind of canyon effect feel. And I don't think that the upper floors will even be visible when you're on Main Street, so it won't feel like that, as the people like to say, the Rantoul effect. And I am very grateful to you for taking Ms. Shula's concerns seriously, and for putting a lot of thought into listening to what she said and understanding about the shadowing and the mitigation of noise and kind of camouflaging the effects of the garage on her property. I think that's extremely important, that we always need to be cognizant of the collateral effect of anything that we do. And I am grateful that you took that seriously. And I think incorporating the green space into the initial design and making that such a prominent part of the design and not an afterthought, I truly appreciate that, because anybody that knows me is green space is extraordinarily important to me. And I think using property that was already developed rather than plowing down more trees is the way to go when we're building things. I think preserving our green space and using space that's already been developed is the way to go. I worked at that bank many years ago when it was in its heyday, and there were about 50 or 60 employees there, and it was a never-ending stream of customers in that bank because it was prior to electronic banking. So everyone was cashing their Social Security check, everyone was cashing their paycheck. So I know from experience that there is going to be less activity with this if it goes through than there was in previous years, and people need to kind of dig back in memory to what it was before. I think people become accustomed when things change, but that was a very vibrant and busy place at one time with people coming and going all the time. So thank you.
Councilor Memard.
I would just like to join my fellow councilors in embracing this as, I think, an excellent project for the location. Following Councilor Grace's comments, when I was the treasurer of the UU Church, we had a drawer in the vault in the basement of this bank, and I wish you luck getting that part of the project out of there. It's going to be a substantial challenge, but I think it's an excellent project for all of the reasons have been stated, and I welcome you to Main Street, and I think we can look forward to an excellent relationship with you. Thank you.
Councilor Benson.
Thank you. And thank you to echo what my fellow councilors have already said, that this will be a real benefit to this part of Main Street, to a building that has been vacant for a very long time. And I've visited different Main Streets since being a counselor and before across much of the US, and seeing where things are going, where you have mixed use. And then those folks that live above this restaurant will be not just visiting your restaurant, if it is a restaurant, will be going across the street to the Cut, will be going down to the other portion of Main Street. This will be a huge win for Main Street. And I hear this from businesses down there all the time about what can we do to get more foot traffic down there year round. This is going to be year round residents. I also do appreciate all that you've done in communicating with of direct abutters and your continued commitment to communicating with those folks, and also the condition we put forward at the subcommittee. I appreciate that. I think, again, this does really fit the character of the neighborhood. Looking at from when we looked across the street at the site visit, that this, you won't even see the last two floors. It will really look like only the third anyway. Again, I really do appreciate this, and I'm very excited for this project. And I think that this is an example of what we can do going forward on Main Street, because there's a lot of vacant buildings down there, of what more we can do to help make sure our Main Street is vibrant and the folks down there continue to survive. So thank you.
Well, this is sort of following a national trend of, where the housing is a greater need for so many communities in our nation, where they're converting formal commercial space into housing. I think this is, it's self-contained. Sounds like it's going to be well managed. There's another, while it only has 4 affordable units, there's another aspect that adding those other 36 market rate units will be, is that people will move into those and will not move into neighborhoods and drive some of those rents up even higher. So there is that added benefit of having a little bit more inventory that takes some pressure off of the other neighborhoods that are so necessary in this community that are affordable. So that also is a benefit.
We appreciate so much the 60% AMI. That's really great. And also the thinking about local preference as well. You all have been so great with the folks who are in the neighborhood, really bent over backwards for them. This is a great project. Let's bring on the arborvitae.
Any more discussion? Roll call vote, please call the roll.
Councilor Page?
Aye.
Councilor Benson? Councilor Grace?
Aye.
Councilor Gross?
Aye.
Councilor Grow?
Aye.
Councilor Kimberly?
Aye.
Councilor Memhard?
Aye.
The vote is 7 in favor, 0 opposed, 2 absent. The motion passes.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. We really appreciate it.
And next order of business, Madam Clerk.
For council vote, citations from the City Council and appreciation of decades of service on the Gloucester Retirement Board to Douglas A. MacArthur and Patricia Ibis.
Okay, we've been made aware that Doug MacArthur and Tricia Ibis are both retiring from the retirement board. Doug McCarthy's been there, I think, 36 years, and Patricia Ibis has been there for 21 years. Tomorrow, they're being given their retirement little tattoo or whatever it is, and so the auditor requested that we join in congratulating and thanking them for their decades of service. So that's what these are about. I'll entertain a motion to issue the citations to Douglas MacArthur and Patricia Ivers.
So moved.
Second.
Motion made by Counselor Gross, seconded by Counselor Grace. Discussion. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Ayes have it, 7-0, 2 absent. Next order of business, Madam Clerk.
Counselor request to the mayor.
Counselor Page.
No requests, thank you.
Counselor Benson.
No request, just a reminder that tomorrow's at Burnham's Field, the farmer's market has been canceled due to impending weather.
Counselor Grace.
Yeah, just a couple quick ones. Just going back to the beginning of the meeting tonight about I-4C2 and talking about the parking, and I just want to emphasize and request that that be made a top priority, that there's something in place that is viable and ready to go and not an afterthought when we start any project down there. Once again, I'm going to stand up here on my soapbox and remind you all that you need to slow down, drive as though it's your kid that get hit by a car. You have no right to endanger the life of anyone in this community because of your impatience. So slow down and stop being obnoxious. Don't forget tomorrow night, the Housing Compass right here from 6 to 8.
Thank you. Counselor Grow.
Yeah, just a couple quick ones. Just these have been made before, but I think we're heading towards the middle of summer. It would be nice to have a review of the short-term rental app. Not applications, but registrations, as well as a count on the rental units, long-term rental units that have come about as we've been getting things registered properly through the health department and the building department. It'd be nice to have an update on that, please.
Counselor Kimberly.
I have no request.
Counselor Memard.
My only request is that for some reason I've been getting a number of requests from constituents about dead trees, and the city has a very limited budget, the DPW, for dealing with trees on public property, and we just urge patience and thanks to the DPW for the work that they do. Thank you.
Thank you. And I would like to remind everyone, or just tell everyone that on Thursday at 9:30, here at the Rose Baker Center for Aging Well is a scam fraud awareness session. And in attendance, it'll be hosted by myself and Councilor Nolan and Elisa Nagra, the director of the Rose Baker Center. And we will also have Sheriff Koppelman here, and we will have District Attorney Tucker here, and also we'll have Amy Randazza from the Cape Ann Savings Bank to make people aware of what to look out for and how to address any time they are suspecting anything. Grow.
I just want to take a second to give you a little bit of pat on the back for coming to the council with the Bitcoin ATM ban that we put into effect, last year, I think. And it's something that is now going through, many states are adopting this. Massachusetts is looking at adopting it. I just want to thank Tony for being on the leading edge of that.
Yeah. All right, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn. Motion made by Councilor Gross, seconded by Councilor Page. All those in favor? Aye.